Good morning, everyone. Today, we'll be presenting on inquiry-based learning in teaching the necklace in ESL classroom. Our focus is on how this approach can improve student engagements, critical thinking, and overall understanding of literature. To begin with, literatures play an important role in English language learning. It's not only help students improve their vocabularies and grammar, but also expose them to authentic language used in meaningful contexts. For example, when students read a story, they see how language is used to express emotion, describe situations, and communication ideas. In addition, literature allows students to explore human experience, culture, value, and moral lessons, which make learning more relatable and meaningful. Next, inquiry-based learning is a student-centered approach, where students learn through questionings, explorations, and discussions, instead of simple receiving information from the teacher. This means students are more actively involved in the lessons. For instance, of explaining everything, the teacher might ask, "What do you think this character is feeling?" Or "What do you think this event happens?" This encourages students to think independently and develop their own understanding. This approach is really suitable for literature because literary texts often have multiple meanings and interpretations. Unlike factual subjects, this is not always one correct answer. For example, the necklace. Students can discuss whether Matilda is truly unhappy because of her life or because of her attitudes. Different students may have different opinions, and this makes the discussion richer and more engaging. Moving on to the story itself, The Necklace by Guy de Maupassant tells the story of Mathilde Loiseau, a woman who dreamed a luxurious life. However, she feels dissatisfied with her social status, even though she lives a comfortable life. For example, she is unhappy with her simple home and desires expensive clothes and jewelry. His strong desire for wealth and recognition influences her action, which eventually leads to serious consequences. This makes the story very relevant for discussions and analysis.
The story highlights several important themes that are highly suitable for inquiry-based learning. First, materialism, where Matilda believes that wealth and luxury are necessary for happiness. For example, she is not satisfied with her simple life and constantly dreams of expensive clothes, fine food, and a higher social status. This shows how her desire for material things influence her decision and emotion. Second, pride, as Matilda wants to appear rich and admired by others. She borrowed the necklace not because she needed it, but because she wants to impress people at the party. This reflects how her pride led her to make choices that eventually bring negative consequences. Third, social class, which highlight the gap between the rich and the poor. Matilda feels unhappy not because she lacks basic needs, but because she compares herself to those who are wealthier. This shows how social expectation and comparison can affect a person's self-worth. Finally, appearance versus reality is a key theme in the story. The necklace looks valuable, but in reality it is fake. This represents how outward appearances can be misleading, and it encourages students to think about how people sometimes judge based on what they see rather than what is true. All these themes are very suitable for inquiry-based learning because they allow students to explore different interpretations. For example, students can discuss questions like, is Matilda a victim of society, or is she responsible for her own action? This kind of question does not have a single correct answer, which makes classroom discussion more meaningful and engaging. In the pre-reading stage, the teacher activates student prior knowledge and interest. For example, students may be asked questions like, is wealth necessary for happiness, or Why do people feel dissatisfied with their life? These questions are important because they help students relate the topic to their own experience. For instance, some students may say that happiness comes from relationship rather than money, while others may have different opinions. This creates a meaningful starting point for the lesson. In inquiry-based learning, the classroom shifts from teacher-centered to student-centered learning. Instead of the teacher doing most of the talking, students actively participate by asking questions and sharing ideas. The teacher acts as a facilitator who guides students' thinking. For example, the teacher might not directly explain the theme, but instead ask students to identify it through discussion. The lesson can be structured into 3 stages, which is reading, while reading, and post-reading.
During the while reading stage, students engage directly with the text through guided questions. Instead of just reading silently, they are encouraged to think actively about the story and interact with the text in a meaningful way. For example, the teacher may ask, "Why is Matilda unhappy?" Or, "What does her attitude show about her personality?" These questions guide students to focus on key details and underlying meanings. Students can discuss this question in pairs or small groups, creating a more interactive learning environment. This allows them to share ideas, compare opinions, and learn from each other's perspectives. At the same time, it also helps improve their communication skills and build their confidence in expressing their thoughts in English. In the post-reading stage, students reflect more deeply on the story and evaluate its meaning. They are encouraged not only to understand the plot but also to think about the message behind the story. They can participate in activities such as group discussion, debates, and creative tasks. For example, students can debate whether Matilda is responsible for her own suffering or a victim of society. This helps them see that there can be multiple interpretations of a text. They can also write a reflection about the lesson they learn or create an alternative ending, allowing them to use their own creativity while engaging with the text. These activities encourage students to think more critically, organize their ideas, and express them clearly in both spoken and written forms. There are several benefits of using inquiry-based learning. First, it enhances critical thinking because students must analyze situations, interpret characters' action, and make judgments based on the evidence. For example, they must decide whether Matilda's actions were justified and support their own opinions. Second, it increases student engagement as students are more interested when they are actively involved in discussions. Third, it encourages collaborations as students work together, exchange ideas, and respect different viewpoints. Finally, it promotes deeper understanding as students go beyond the storyline and explores themes such as materialism and appearance versus reality. In conclusion, inquiry-based learning provides an effective and student-centered approach to teaching the necklace in the SL classroom. It encourages students to ask questions, explore ideas, and engage in meaningful discussions. As a result, students improve their language skills while also developing critical thinking and analytical abilities. Overall, this approach supports both language and developments and higher order thinking skills, making literature learning more engaging and meaningful. Thank you.